Hey everybody, welcome to the Product Momentum Podcast. Coming at you live today from the Pendemonium Conference, hosted by Pendo. Big shout out to them for having us in today. And it's been awesome to hang out with almost 1,000 product people, learning and growing and getting to hear about what's coming in the space, which has been awesome. Today we're joined by Jay Brewer and Zhuldyz Alimbeck.
Yes.
And they're coming at you from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. And they're some of the rare animals in the zoo today because they're both from the UX team at Houghton Mifflin, which has been cool. We're excited to get into that and how you guys are thinking about analytics, tracking, measurement, like understanding the user better to help your product teams. Jay Brewer is this SVP of Digital Product Design at Houghton Mifflin. He's been working in design and UX across a wide range of areas, including toys, websites, video games, enterprise software, and he founded several companies in gaming, social media, product innovation, so big breadth of knowledge here, excited to talk to you.
Thanks.
And then Zhuldyz is a UX researcher at Houghton Mifflin. She brings a background in cognitive science, which is really cool, so get ready for Sean to geek out about that.
Love that.
She's passionate about understanding the human mind and really designing to meet the needs of those users across the broad range of user types and a lot of users on a really complex and complicated product that Houghton Mifflin has created for students and teachers. So really excited to have you both today. I'm Kyle Psaty, VP of Marketing at ITX, and of course you all know Sean Flaherty, EVP of Innovation at ITX, regular co-host of the podcast. Thank you guys for joining us today and making time.
Thank you. Yeah. It's interesting. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, awesome. It is exciting. This is like a very exciting scene, and it's been awesome. I think everybody's been in such a great mood and so warm. It's been really a community-oriented event, so that's been cool. I want to talk about user feedback, and I want to talk about how your team is using user feedback across this platform and all these sort of various capabilities that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Sure, I can talk about that. So we have various sources where we get user feedback. So if of course, we do a lot of UX research, and through that we gain, with the usability testings, with the user interviews, ethnographic research we gain a lot of user feedback. But if we really talk about Pendo, it's the spontaneous customer feedback we receive via Resource Center, where our teachers or admin, they can go in and submit feedback. And in the moment of frustration, that's super important for us. It's called spontaneous. We don't ask for that feedback. So that's a big difference for us. And also we have NPS that we put out twice a year, which is we ask for that feedback. So they gave the number and they provide their user feedback. So if we talk about Pendo, that's two sources of user feedback that we receive.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that spontaneous feedback and the quality that you get in the sort of qualitative, like frustrated moment that's honesty, right? Like that's honesty.
Yeah. I mean, once again, one of the things with Pendo that's great is that have the resource center, they submit their feedback. We actually know in the product, like where, in what we're calling Ed. Ed's our platform, it's educational. And so in Ed, we'll know like, hey, it came from the dashboard, or it came from, they were looking at their Into Math teaching curriculum materials, which, and we then get a little bit more of a context, which I think the conference has talked a lot about knowing the context of the feedback, which lets us categorize the feedback a little bit easier and then kind of collate that feedback and get it. So the types of things you hear, like, yeah, this I can't find anything, or, this thing isn't working. I want to grade faster. Why does it take me so many steps to complete an assignment, right? Why does this product on your platform have assignments different than this other product on our platform, right? And so we find, like, since we also connect to a lot of programs, that we're getting a mixture of feedback around support issues, like around the actual usability, and then also around their perception of like the content, right? Which for them is that experience, that whole thing is the product, right? So if they happen to be using math in one of our connected programs like Waggle, which is more of a standalone application that you launch from the platform.
Okay.
They see it as one thing. And so what's great is with Pendo, since we can have it across all that, we get that wide range of feedback. You know, for us, we're really trying to improve the platform to teaching experience, but we do provide that feedback to other stakeholders in the business so that they can actually learn. Yeah.
Teachers are really proactive, and we're so lucky to have users and teachers really providing us. I have teachers who are providing video links in the feedback, and like, this is what's happening, this is what I don't like, can you improve this? So they're very proactive, and just for the past year, for those spontaneous feedback, we received over 7,000.
Wow.
And you know, and sometimes they are stuck with our platform and they want us to improve. It's a different type of. It's not entertainment, right? When they get bored, they can leave. Here, we really need to improve the experience because they are teaching with us.
Right.
So, and especially if they're frustrated, and you're in the middle of the class, you're frustrated. It's a different type of emotions you have because you're teaching and you have a student waiting for you, and it's a different sense of responsibility you have as UX researchers or design team, right?
Do you find you get better feedback from customers who actually care about the product?
Yeah, I mean, they care about the product because the product is the learning that they want to provide the student. So it's really
Immediately adjacent, to
it's
their
like
passion.
right there.
Tough in this situation because they don't really have a choice.
Right.
As a teacher, they don't get to choose what product they're using.
Yeah. That's another.
Yeah.
It's
Which I
very
think
unique.
Makes it even more of a responsibility for you guys to take their feedback really seriously.
Yeah, because like their district or whoever is picked to have the ed as their educational platform. Obviously, there's a lot of care and understanding that goes in trying to make it fit the needs of the district. But in the end, they're like, okay, I have to learn this math program or science program if it's new. Typically, it's a many-year kind of subscription, but it is something where we really care, and so they're very passionate, knowing that it isn't going to go away. Right? It's sort of like a car you bought you can't return, right? Right? You're like, I have to drive this car every day. And, the fact that I have to turn on 45 buttons and flip the switch like 4 or 5 isn't really great from a UX perspective, right? Or like from the fact that they want more assignments or they want to associate or make groups of kids, like all the stuff that's in their classroom is very unique to their situation and the kids, and it changes year to year for them. It's not as predictable, as you would imagine.
How do you use? I'm sure you get, if it's spontaneous, I'm sure you're getting some positive feedback.
Sure.
Yes.
How do you use that?
Well, empower our stakeholders to say, "Oh, you're doing a great job," but it's not that often. Yes, I mean, the range is more negative because people tend, psychologically speaking, people tend to write when it's negative more.
Especially when they're in a prisoner sort of scenario where they don't have a choice, right?
And they're like, this is what's happening. But whenever it's positive, I tend to put it in my slide and just let them know they're doing a great job too. Yeah.
I think it's a good point, which is there's a lot of feedback. So we the talk that we gave today at Pandemonium too around this is like, how do we collaborate with our stakeholders across the business, product managers, other folks, to say like, hey everybody, I know we turned this thing on and we're getting all this stuff, but let's work together to come up with an innovative way to solve the problems, and then we can work on fun stuff together. And then in the end, this hundreds of pieces of feedback around, I can't use my dashboard or whatever it would be, that's going to go away and you can work on other stuff. And so that's really been our method of trying to work through the feedback this last year.
Yeah, that feedback really drives empathy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I asked that question because I've found in teams I've worked with that positive feedback, if you don't take advantage of it, it's like fuel for your culture.
Yes.
Especially when the bulk of the feedback you get is negative.
Yeah.
Looking for those little balls of light to make sure you're feeding the team,
It makes you feel good, like when you read the positive one.
We also recruit through Pendo, to get for new projects and new development, and we use other
beta testers.
We use beta testers, or like we're going to do a study. We have a concept where we've learned all this feedback. We're going to then put together prototypes and stuff. And we do get a lot of diary studies and videos that we do through other software. And then we, just like the positive feedback, when you can play a video from one of those diary studies,
Yeah.
and it brings everybody like right to the customer. And they're like, oh, that's Brianne. Like, she's like a teacher in this place in upstate New York, and she like really loved these two
Brianne.
things, right? but I think, you know, it's one of the goals too is for us to continually like make the feedback like real,
Yeah.
because it's not. It's just data. Otherwise, it's not like, you know, it's just like if you say, well, like these 4 people can't click on this thing. You're like, I don't really care about those 4 people today. But when you make it really human, like,
When you
you
see
know,
it,
it's really, really powerful.
And you see the impact in real time. That's
Yep.
great. So contrast for me, you guys mentioned NPS, which is generally interruptive feedback.
Sure.
There's a big difference between the quality of the data you get from interruptive feedback versus spontaneous feedback.
Yeah.
different.
Is that what you
Yeah.
experience?
It is different. But when it's spontaneous, it's in the moment of frustration. And sometimes it's also good to interrupt because they are not all the time very active. And you want to reach out to those also who are not active at providing spontaneous feedback. We also do NPS via email because we want to reach out to those who are also not in the platform, because Pendo is in the platform, right? So we want to reach out who are not using it, who left our platform. So it is different, but it's also for us a way to reach out for those who are not usually active, going to that feedback button as well.
And it also balances our, you know, those data doubters or those feedback doubters that we're not actually getting a representative of engaged, kind of frustrated customers, not engaged customers. You know, we need to go back and make sure we have a well-rounded set of feedback that we kind of
Survivor
look
bias.
at. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
Part of your talk today was about how integrating customer feedback helps build products that truly stand out from the competition. Can you guys talk about how your focus on, you know, customer feedback and building this empathy through storytelling, like how does that maybe pervade the organization or provide other sorts of leverage to help, you know, to help Ed stand out among the other products that are available to those school districts?
Yeah.
So it's a big thing. And UX research, we know that users don't always know what they exactly need. And sometimes we're just so focused on tactical features to deliver. And so what we're doing with the workshops, we need to go back. First of all, we educate our stakeholders to let them know. We're going to provide you a lot of research insights, a lot of user requests, but it doesn't mean we need to do exactly what they're asking for. We need to sometimes step back and try to think how we can integrate few features and really provide a solution that's effective. We need to listen to them. It's like, you know, patients, and they provide the symptoms. It's the same. They're really good at explaining their problems, but an experts in tech, we need to provide effective solution for them. So it's sometimes examining further and understanding jobs to be done, why they're asking for this feature exactly, what's the root of the problem. So that's where you actually want to stand out, not just providing features, but actually providing the solution for them that is right. So that is the big difference. Maybe if you want to.
Yeah, no, I think that's nailed it. It's like we like to help people say like, well, you have this thing, and they're saying, I can't find this stuff. And also I'm actually having trouble like getting to my class quickly, or looking at grades before I teach the class. And you think about, you know, we try to run workshops and design thinking stuff with the PMs to basically say like, there's a whole set of stuff that's kind of related, and how do we think about approaches of what we could do with different experiences or things we don't have, or potentially things that we have that aren't working well together, and then transform them into like needs, and then say we're going to meet more of these outcomes. And then you can look at all that feedback and be like, oh yeah, like teachers are saying it was difficult to plan, it was hard to look at what they needed to do to get to teach right away, and also like they needed to know like what happened the day before and what it is. And so if you think about that, what would you do there? And I'm not saying that we do have projects that I can't talk about everything, but like there was a massive amount of feedback around areas like that and other areas where for Back to School 2024, we're using that feedback to put that into like different ways to either reorientate the teacher to the class to make it better. Houghton Mifflin's an educational company, but it's also a 180-year-old publisher.
Right.
So they're very publishing focused. Well, teachers are class focused and kid focused.
Yeah.
So maybe our experience has a pretty good bias in it to be more about the content and those titles than it is around whatever. So how do you unpack that mindset of like, oh, it's not that they can't find stuff. It's like, it's not in the context of how they think about finding stuff. And so that's really how we work through it. And then we've gotten since I've been there and working with the team, working with product managers, there's a level of like fitness we're getting around thinking about the bigger picture to then act on it in bite-sized ways to really drive sets of needs instead of just like go move a button because they say they can't find this quick preview.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is. So
yeah, you talked a little bit about the culture of Houghton Mifflin and there are all kinds of cultures. Not many of them are UX research first, right? Like the Houghton Mifflin's publisher first. You guys have a lot of data. You're doing a lot of research. You're synthesizing that data. You're pulling out stories. You're sharing those videos. For you as a team with so many stakeholders across this broad platform, how do you find influence with your stakeholders to get them to listen? How do you?
It's I think it's like, I don't know. Whenever I talk to UX researchers, I think all of them have this problem. There's a tension between research team and product team, and they're like, oh, and there's always like a researcher wants to put a lot of user pain points in the roadmap, and the product team, they have other things to put in the roadmap. So it was so important for us to collaborate. So there are a lot of tips. So we invited to the workshop. So we didn't record the workshop, so they're honest with us, and we are honest with them. So that was the first. It was important.
These are
for
workshops with your users.
Yeah,
with the
product teams.
Yeah, I got it.
Influence the
after we've kind of
stakeholders.
collected this feedback quarterly, we workshop the feedback in the themes where you might have someone who is really working on the dashboard and our discovery of content and whatever. And so we'll be like, hey, we think these things line up. So now we're going to workshop and come up with creative ideas of like where this can align to the roadmap. So you as a product manager can hit the ground running and have all this feedback informed product development, right?
Yeah. So providing that empathy as UX researcher, and also letting them know that we are on the same team. We have one goal. At the end of the day, we're trying to enhance student progress and improve teachers' life. Research is really here to help you to make the right decisions and prioritize the feature development, and being genuine about it. I'm really here, I'm really empathetic. I'm empathetic to users, but also empathetic to you as product manager. You probably have a lot on your plate. So that was the first thing when I invited to the workshop. We really wanted to understand their side, and then we provide our user research, our user insights, and then we collaboratively work together to align user needs, user requests to the product roadmap and probably the potential projects they have. So it's basically empathy not only to your users but also to your partners. And it was that kind of influence, being genuine, really there to be helpful and insightful when it comes to building that bridge between user and the product team. Yeah.
Do you guys ever workshop with your customers? Just curious.
Yeah, sure.
You do that
absolutely.
as well?
Yeah, and we also do other types of field studies and things where we're out in the classroom, we're learning. They're providing us like daily diaries. They're doing week after week, doing wrap ups, and we do in class and stuff. We have a significant community, like in Teachers Corner on Facebook and stuff. And oh my gosh, like
what comes out of that?
Anything you could possibly imagine. Like it's like they'll sign up to do anything to help out. They love learning. They love showing us all the ways that they're doing these things that they would love to not do, or they're really proud of the way that they plan, and they show this almost like archaic medieval manuscripts looking things, right? Where they've got every moment of everything planned out, and we're like, what's the blend? One of our big challenges that has been since the pandemic and for teaching and learning in general is that a lot of teachers have left the profession. There's a lot of new teachers in the profession. And so they're put right in this hot seat of having to do planning, teaching, figuring out how to set up their class, learning the curriculum, learning the instructional routines, figuring out how to do assessments, all these things that I didn't really even know until the last couple of years. And then you're like, so what we've really been focused on is getting these really new to teaching teachers into that mode, because they're actually able to learn an on-ramp to teaching that can make them not look like fools in front of the class. I mean, they're really like, they're up there
kind of
as
pain.
as a pain. And they're like, they're young, they want to be successful, and they're having to do all this. And so we've been really focused on that and the on-ramp of getting them set up, running, going, getting professional learning, getting them a coach, all these things that we're making in the platform experience around them to give them that psychological safety to become a teacher.
They have a pretty merciless customer base, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
Parents and kids, right?
Right.
Because everybody wants the best learning, and they want the best teachers, and everybody, wants that. But you got to give some of these teachers a shot so that they do become those amazing teachers, and they can connect with the students, and they have a lot to offer, along with the seasoned teachers, right? And so that's really been the challenge too, is that the customer, or who is using Ed, has changed a lot in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So selfishly, I'm going to ask Zhuldyz a couple questions now.
Perfect.
How do you, when you say cognitive sciences, that gets me excited, just so you know, how do you bring cognitive science to the product space? Like, what do you mean when you say that?
Interesting. So in cognitive science, we study a lot in terms of perception.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a lot of experimental psychology and understanding how to conduct research. So that's basically the literature review, the skill. Maybe not exactly in terms of understanding mind I'm using at work, but understanding research and how I need to be rigor when it comes to numbers, when it comes to talking to teachers. And also, of course, when I'm conducting the interviews, listening to them helps me a lot from whatever I've learned in cognitive science as well. And yeah, I think and in terms of skills of researcher, doing research in psychology helps me a lot to use in UX research. I never planned to become a UX researcher. I was just genuinely interested in human behavior, and I just ended up becoming a UX researcher. But if you talk to any UX researcher, I think they have very interesting journeys where they study psychology. So I think talking to people, having that empathy, having that genuine curiosity in human behavior, what's going on, let me put myself in their shoes. So all of these skills, they come from cognitive science, and not only the research methods that you use in psychology.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. We try to apply concepts of like self-determination theory and the core science of human intrinsic motivation when we're building products. I think it.
Oh, that's interesting.
You informing your workshops and informing your research with what's going on under the covers in people's minds is a powerful tool.
Yeah,
so I love it.
And unfortunately, it's real life. I have no time to do literature review and do more stuff when you do a lot of projects at the same time. But that's one thing sometimes I wish I could go back and read all these interesting articles before I do the projects. But that's super interesting.
It's a cool mix of skills.
Yeah.
I got a quick one for Jay. So Jay, you have a pretty varied background. You've been doing this for a long time. What do you see changing about the process or about the job as a UX researcher or as a leader of the UX function?
Yeah, my background, doing product development and stuff. Also, I did a large stint, like about 12 years in video games, right?
Right.
In video games,
Totally,
like everybody says, like
totally interesting.
like is usually a little ahead of itself, like ahead of everybody else. And it's true. The thing that you learn is like, all around, like I have a need to play this Lord of the Rings game because I want to be Legolas, like in the evening, and I want to go through the Shire and do these quest with my good Hobbit friend and like deliver some pies and come back and I come back the next night and I want to play that game and go deeper and maybe we'll wander out. And what's happened is really that outcome of a success, right?
Yeah.
And like a feeling
That
of
dopamine or whatever,
of
yeah.
joy and whatever, and it's like it's about the needs being met and them having those outcomes. And so this whole conference has got a lot more of that language in it. And what you're seeing is that you have to figure out those needs and really get the motivations and get the research and understanding right, so you can embark on a good journey, right, with your product teams and your development and design teams. And the voice of the customer and like the informed point of view of empathy and relating is even more important than ever before in an enterprise space, right? Because like the thing is that like this is all going to like I keep paying and go, or I can go somewhere else really quickly, right? And as like more product development happens and more smaller areas of stuff due to AI and whatever, then that needs meets outcomes is going to go higher and higher and higher. Right. Like, you have your Calendly and you have this and you have this little app and that little app and use your ChatGPT. Like, we heard this at the conference and those are all stitching together to meet your needs. And that's also a different way of thinking why you're buying and doing, but I think that's happening. Yeah.
My favorite book on this is written by a guy named Scott Rigby, who we've had on the podcast many times.
Oh, wow.
He wrote Glued to Games. He's got a PhD and he studied self-determination theory at the University of Rochester, studying video games and behavior and human needs satisfaction. Now he's got a company called Immersive. Like I said, he's been on our podcast, I think, 4 times now.
Yeah, a couple times.
Wow.
Just talking about all the stuff you just talked about.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of nuggets that I captured. We're getting close to the end here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'd like to just review them with you, make sure I have them accurately captured. One is that spontaneous feedback is really important. So if you can figure out how to capture it in the moment, it's like a power tool for product leaders. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something you get clearly from Pendo.
Yeah, and you're willing to take it.
Yeah. Well, you got to do something with it. Absolutely. Number 2, we talked about positive feedback as fuel for your culture, and I think having systems and like doing what you're doing, like taking that positive feedback, putting it on your slide deck, intermixing it so you're pushing some of that positive energy about the good work you are doing, especially in the midst of a lot of negative feedback, is really important for teams. Number 3 is this. I asked you to compare and contrast spontaneous versus interruptive feedback. I didn't exactly get the answer that I like because I don't like interruptive feedback personally. Like I hate surveys.
But he's biased.
But
I
am biased. But your answer was really valuable to me because you said, that it helps you handle all those data doubters and it helps you deal with things like survivorship bias and other things, all the things that you can't see in the people that are actually using the product. I thought that was brilliant. So
that was awesome.
Thank you for that nugget.
Awesome.
I got a lot here. So 4, understanding the context. You went deep on that. Like the more you understand the real context of the problems you're trying to solve, the better you can solve the problems.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we lose track of that a lot as product leaders. So getting in there and really understanding in the moment context. Number 5, feedback when you have it. If you're not using it to inform your workshops, like that was a light bulb for me. Like we go into workshops, sometimes we schedule regular workshops and we don't even think about what are we informing those friggin' workshop with?
Yeah.
And that
what
was
are we bringing to the
You
table?
can put it right on that memo board.
Yeah, just get it there.
And
get
it's
it there.
there, but we don't always use it. It's just like you said, like, we're collecting it, but well, if we're not using it, it's useless.
Yep.
So I love that. This has been a theme here. Number 6, this came from you, Zhuldyz, that empathy is not just for your users, but also for your team, the people building the products. I think that's an important
Build
theme
that
to
bridge,
continue to reiterate.
Yeah.
Number 7 is that having a beta testing community that's diverse, not just in the way we typically think about diversity, but in the longevity of their usage of the product. Like you need new users because you might get a lot of unexpected things from them, and that was an insight for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think is really powerful.
Yep.
Yeah.
That the audience will love. And then number 8, informing products with cognitive science. I think that's next level. And I think I think there's teams that do it, but I think that's going to be the next generation of great products is going to come from that, like really understanding.
Yeah.
And being
How
a
the brain
rigorous
ticks.
researcher, like really being.
And I'll give
Brass tacks
Zhuldyz
about
and the team huge things. I think a lot of times you see research come out and it's all like very positive and all like exciting, and that's fine. It's good to sprinkle a little positive and get to the actual facts so that you can really do the work.
Yeah.
And so we also put all of our research, and we have like a monthly performance review where we go through all the projects and themes. We meet for a day and everybody can see all the work. All the research is in not just the product team reporting like, hey, guess what? We built all this stuff.
Yeah.
Here's all the research we conducted.
Yeah.
Here's actually how the things that we're
All the
doing are
way
being
back.
built.
Yeah.
And it's actually completely, when the project starts, the research never goes away. Means because like for the next
'Cause it
phase, for
carries-
design, for
yeah.
discovery, for whatever,
It's connected,
here's
yeah.
what features
That's
are doing,
brilliant.
which has been also a big win. But it's also it's a thing to ask the research team to make sure we can provide that. But we've seen it worth it, like really worth it.
Yeah, that's
So-
that's probably the best metadata tag I've ever heard of. Like
Yeah.
carry that research and that Bethany or whatever you said, her video right along with this feature, so the empathy is always there.
And you don't ever forget what you learned in the past.
Yeah, and then that research gets rolled up to the executive leadership team, and when they started getting a little bit of it, it was like crack, right? Because they're like, holy cow, you guys are doing all this. I'm hearing about teachers, and so that was another really good win for us, I think, too. Yeah.
Excellent.
2 more?
So how do you guys define innovation?
Oh wow.
Innovation. Interesting. I think there are very different ways we can look at it, but for me, it's adapting. For me, there is nothing original, but it's also trying to adapt and creating something. So for me, it's like being adaptive and being creative. It's
Combining.
Combining things that you've learned, of course, and evolving.
Love it.
It's just human beings. We're programmed to evolve all the time. And if you're not adapting quickly, you're going to be dead in the market. So
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's really looking at the diversity in the space, like Zhuldyz is sort of getting at there, and putting and listening and understanding and relating before you jump to the solution, and taking all that into it and be like, oh my gosh, what if we did this? So there's a transform in there. If you've got the context, you kind of relate, you get the empathy. It's like if you feed ChatGPT well, right? It can work well. Your teams can perform well and come up with something innovative if they've got all those tools and the diverse set of things informing it. It really works. Other than that, you do get a lot of like moving the button.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all about that context, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Last one. Anything that either of you are learning about lately, or especially any books that you've read that you think our audience would love to read?
Okay. Well, can be very different from what people like.
No wrong answers, Zhuldyz.
No, right? Okay. I'm going back to Russian literature. I love Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. Whenever I'm not spiritually growing. But, I think the art of the best also explaining psychology and philosophy. A lot of people ask for psychological books and recommendations from me because I study cognitive science, but I always go back to literature. Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, it's a masterpiece. I can't even describe it. So really want to understand deep psychology, the motivation, what happens, crime and punishment. And it's very long topic, but that's what I'm reading right now. It just came to my mind, and it's really interesting. It might not be related to product development, of course, but I think it's great to actually grasp some stuff from there as well.
And like very florid and detailed, right? Which our listeners love to be detailed, so detail-oriented, so well played.
Nice.
What about you, Jay?
Interesting. I have a philosophy degree as well.
All right.
And I recently, just with the state of everything, and I've been getting back into a philosopher. His last name is Quine, and there's a book called The Web of Belief. And I've been going back through books that when I was a little younger, maybe a little fresher out of college, had really good ways of thinking about having better conversations with people, and really kind of taking a web of someone's belief and then being able to have a good conversation versus having an argument because you're just so far apart. So I've been doing that and a little bit of Alan Watts too, and a bunch
Alan
of Alan
Watts,
Yeah,
love him.
So
Yeah.
Excellent.
yeah.
Nicely
Well, thank you
done.
guys. This was a great
Thank you.
interview. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to get it published.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jay Brewer and Zhuldyz Alimbeck from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt here at Pandemonium 2023. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Yeah.